Here's a great idea. Why don't you start your own brokerage right as the markets are about to tank and then film everything so strangers on the internet can judge everything you do? What could possibly go wrong? So as I told you in the first video, I've worked for 5 different national brokerages. In this video, I'll talk a little bit about those brokerages, and I'll also give you a great why people hate realtor stories. So stay tuned for that. So why did you leave the national brokerages, you ask? Well, there's a few different reasons, but one of them is I kind of like having it my own, so it's totally local. These national brokerages, they all are from out of this area, and so whenever you make a sale, 6%, at least 6% of your money goes back to the national brokerage somewhere out of town, usually way out of state somewhere, some even out of the country. So I wanted to do my own brokerage to keep it local and be able to give back to the community that I live in. And the other thing, in my opinion, is that all these brokerages are basically the same. They all have their own idea of marketing and it's all a little different, but for the most part, it's all the same. And in all my years in real estate, I've never had anybody, when I moved from one brokerage to another, say, well, I'm not going to use you anymore because you're not at ReMax or you're not at KW or wherever I was. So that was the other thing that, I just didn't see the value. And with my YouTube channel, that I'm going to talk about way more in depth in the next video, there was really no reason for me to keep paying all this money into these different brokerages for the occasional use of a conference room. So I've kind of been at all the different types of brokerages, the old school and the new school. And, KW was the first kind of new school one I went to. And that was interesting. What I learned there is they're kind of a real estate office disguised as a realtor education office. They, they put on all these classes and, they want all their agents to pay to go to these classes. And I always thought it's kind of weird that if you're a brokerage trying to, help out your agents and, make the brokerage the best one around, why wouldn't you give them this education? But obviously that was part of their business plan, is to, try and get the agents to pay for all these different classes. And one of them was called Bold, that I went to. We were everyone was pressured into taking this class. And I don't know if they still do this or if it's still like this with the pressure, but we definitely felt pressure to go to this class. So we spent the money to go, and I went for, I don't know, 5 or 6 classes of the 8. And it was just very cringy. There was one day, this was the end for me, where they're talking about mindset. So they told you to bring $101 bills to class. And so everybody did. And then when we got there that day, they told everybody to, one at a time, lay down on the floor. And then all the other people in your group would sprinkle the $1 bills over the top of you as you yelled, "I'm a money magnet," which that was it for me, like I said. And again, I don't know if they're still doing this, but I thought that was the most cringe thing of all time. And then some of the other brokerages, they're all about recruiting. And once again, everybody has to recruit a little bit, but the way they go about it, it was just totally rubbed me the wrong way. And I just didn't want to be part of a plan where it's just all about recruiting. So I moved along, and that the last brokerage I was at was Real, and it was a good brokerage. I really liked how they embraced technology, and I had met and knew a whole bunch of great people there. So it's not really about the agents, it's more about the type of brokerage you're getting into and what they provide for you. But when our monthly meetings started turning out to be all they talked about was how many people everybody recruited every day. That kind of turned me off. It wasn't really about selling real estate. It was about, how many people you could recruit. And then you end up getting people that don't even sell real estate. They're in it just to see how many people they can get in their downline. And once again, when you're working on that and not real estate, I don't feel like you're really helping your real estate clients. So anyway, there's, it's not for me. A lot of people obviously like that. I'm just not one of them. And then, like I said earlier, there's a lot of great people in these different companies, but there's also some pretty bad ones. And that brings me to this next story that, like I said, Why People Hate Realtors, episode 5068. So real quick, before I tell you that story, please subscribe to our channel and then hit the thumbs up button so we can get this video out to as many people as possible. Thanks. So the story about why people hate realtors is kind of funny. I was doing floor one day, and I'm not going to tell you what office I was in because that might give it away. I think the guy may still be in the business, shockingly enough. That would be another reason people don't like realtors. But anyway, I'm doing floor one afternoon, which means I'm sitting there waiting for, anybody that walks in. Anyway, somebody comes in, but they didn't just walk in, they came barging in, and they said, and I'm going to change the names for safety reasons. They said, "Where the hell's Joe?" And I was like, Joe doesn't work here. And this particular office had numerous locations around the valley. So Joe did not work at this office. So anyway, the guy's just mad as hell, and he wants to find Joe, and he demands to see Joe because he's going to kick Joe's ass. And I'm finally get him to calm down, and all the other agents that were there at the time came out, and we all try and, get this guy to calm down, which he finally does. And it turns out the story is that Joe was at the other office in a different part of town making cold calls, and, I think it was for sale by owners. And he called this guy's wife actually answered the phone, and he just kept talking and wanting to get the listing on their house and telling them they're doing it wrong and all this stuff. And the lady's like, don't quit bothering me. I'm not going to list with you. And he just wouldn't let up. And, the husband was in the kitchen or wherever at the time that she was talking to him. And so he grabs the phone from him and says, "My wife said no, leave her alone." And so this guy continues on with the husband, and the husband's like, just gets to a point where he's so pissed that he's like, "Where do you work?" Well, Joe tells him that he works at our office, which is, again, the different office, and tells him, "Come on down, I'll fight you." So the guy does, and like I said, so we're all there not knowing what's going on until this guy told us the story. And we finally got him calmed down, and we finally explained to him that, this guy doesn't even work at this office, so you may have to go to the other office, but I'm sure there's a 1,000% chance that he wasn't there either. But anyway, that how not to do real estate 101. That was my Why People Hate Realtors story, one of the many I'll tell you on this channel. So next week, I'm going to tell you a story about why you need to be careful when you make these videos, because you never know, you may have 4 million people that end up watching your video. And like I always told my wife, had I known 4 million people were going to watch this video, I probably would have dressed better.